Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew,
My name is Eric.
and today we have special guest Dylan Guerra.
Hey, what's up?
Woo! Welcome,
we're
Dylan.
we're really excited to have you, Dylan. So
Happy to be here.
Dylan actually wrote for season 3 of The Other Two. He was one of the writers, and we're so excited to talk with him. And we are going to be talking about as we always do with TV series, talking about the pilot. And I'm very curious also to hear Dylan's perspective on like what it was like when he first saw that and how that influenced him. And yeah, how you doing, Dylan?
I'm good, strike times. We're doing I also something that I deeply love about podcast recordings is that um I have to pretend like I just like clicked on and started doing the podcast and that we haven't been talking for like 10 minutes. um, um, so it's sort of like, yeah, she writes, but she has to act a little bit sometimes too. Um, but but yeah, I'm good. I mean, we're what, day 60 something of the strike now, and
Jeez.
we're deep in it. uh so things feel a little bit like life's not on hold. It's like life's on the line right now, on the picket line. But we're good. We're good. It's summer. The air is bad. We are single. We are figuring it out.
Yeah,
I
girl.
literally
Not you
just had
using.
asking me how I am. Literally, I had strep this week that I got at a pride party. So like
Mm.
Oh
how
my
I
God.
am is
Okay.
like
This actually leads into the question we like to ask all our guests, which is, what's the gayest thing you did this week? And if you need time to think, Eric and I can go first.
no. Oh yeah, you guys go first.
Okay, the gayest thing I did this week was uh I I was like, what's the most gay? And this like specific moment, I was downstairs with my friend. He lives a floor below me, and we were getting ready to go to the bar, and he was wearing a shirt, and then he had two other shirts, and it was just like, which one of these? And that specifically felt very gay. I was like, that's not an experience I have with my straight friends, where they have like three different options all ironed and ready to go for the night, and they're asking me to help choose, and they're already wearing one. And then like that also leads into another gay thing, which is I bought a new bathing suit. I bought like short board shorts, which I was due because my board shorts were too long, and they're really cute, and my friend helped me pick them out. So
Mm. Sweet. Um, I would say the gayest thing I did this week is, I'm always going to bring in the emotional side of it. I've just been watching. Now more than ever, I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, and like I've been watching a bunch of her like videos from her concert, and she's been playing a lot of songs that like I like. She doesn't play like the same, like there's a portion where she doesn't play the same songs for like every show, and recently she's been playing a lot of my favorite songs during that portion, and I've been like watching TikToks and like crying to them and being like, this is the best thing ever, and just like really letting that sink into the emotion of it. Um yeah, well, that's always gonna go ahead and be the gayest thing I've done this week.
yeah, you've been making those really fun TikToks of the sped up Taylor Swift songs
Oh
where you
my
like dance with them. They're
gosh.
so good. They're so watchable.
They're so fun to make. Picture me in my bedroom at like 4 a.m. making like 20 of them, and I may be high a little bit, but I just love to make them. They're so fun. Yeah.
Okay, my gayest thing that I did this week was 2 days ago. I had strep from Pride, as will
Mm.
probably bring up like 9 more times in this podcast. Strep from Pride. I am like sideways on my couch, like spooning probiotic yogurt into my mouth because the pill that I take to get rid of strep messes with your stomach. And I'm watching Twister, and Twister is a perfect film. We could talk about Twister for the duration of this, but and there's just a scene in Twister where the new fiance of the main guy Bill Paxton. I just needed to pull up Google. I didn't even Google anything. Um, Bill Paxton's new fiance steps out of a truck and she has these like little sunglasses on and she is like harried from a tornado. And I truly just compulsively at my TV was like, girl. And like that's the gayest to me. That's the gayest thing I have done was like kind of try to like read a woman from a movie in 1996, like wow, thick and like truly like looking like a disaster.
That's beautiful. I love this
That's
beautiful
so good.
tapestry, the beautiful tapestry we've painted.
Yes, dude, I love if you go to our Instagram, I've been like making like the profile picture of the person and like the snippet of the gayest thing they did that week, and they're so fascinating. They're all so varied. It's so interesting. Like, go through and read them. It's like
Yeah,
they're
I
fun.
will. I will.
Yeah.
Oh, I was saying that to our listeners, but yeah, also Dylan, you
Oh,
go there and read them.
I am a listener.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about first of all, I really want to talk about your experience. And let's start with
Yeah.
how what's your like writing background? How did you end up being able to join this writer's room? And what was that all like?
Yeah, so I'll tell the like shortened version so that we can get into like the thick of it. But I came from the playwriting world. I'm a playwright in New York City. And I had been sort of doing, I'm a member of different playwriting groups and I've had a couple of playwriting fellowships and things like that. So like my like work had I haven't had like a major off-Broadway production or anything like that, but I'd had my work had just sort of like been around and I had this solo show called Find Him that I did at Ars Nova's Ant Fest, and then it originally was at Dixon Place and then it got picked up for a while by Ars Nova and it was done periodically there.
And you performed in this. This was you
It's a
performed the
solo
solo
show. It's an autobiographical solo show
Oh,
about
cool. So she does act.
she does act about a guy that I was casually seeing who one night told me that he was going to disappear and then he went missing. And then I tried to find him and I like chronicled my search and looking for this guy and I made it this solo show. And it did really well, and people seem to really.
This is a true story. This is a true story.
Yeah, it's top
Oh
to
my
bottom,
God.
100% a true thing. He wasn't. The show peels it away in this, so I guess it's sort of a light spoiler alert for this solo show I was doing. But it's not like he was missing and the police were looking for him. There wasn't like an open investigation. He like went missing. He moved out of his apartment. He deleted all of his social media and nobody knew where he was. And so like, and he didn't tell anybody where he was going other than I'm assuming his family because there wasn't like an actual investigation.
Right.
So I chronicled my search looking for this guy and I made it the solo show. And I like right before the pandemic, I turned it into a pilot because then I had at this point I had representation. I had an agent and a manager, and I'm very sort of like I'm a pretty practical person in the sense of like I don't want to when I was writing plays and doing them in basements, I would write plays that would take place in basements. I'm not very big on like I didn't want to write a play that was like Angels in America and spectacular and full of sets and budget and stuff when I knew that I couldn't execute it myself. And so writing for TV and film was something that felt like it was too it was too gatekept for me to feel like it was worth my time writing it, which now I have like a different perspective on. But and then once I got an agent and stuff, I was like, oh, now I actually can send this in chance of it getting made or getting staffed on a show or something. And so I wrote this pilot, Find Him, and it wound up and then what had happened. And then Chris Kelly and Sarah Schneider, the creators of the other two, were looking for a play. Specifically, they wanted to hire a playwright for season 3.
Whoa.
And they or so I heard. And I actually never asked them because I never wanted to know if I was a fluke. And my manager sent them my pilot on a Thursday. They read it. Oh, I'm sorry, sent it on a Friday. They read it that Friday morning. They asked to have a meeting with me on Friday night. I had not finished watching season 2. My mom is in town. It is her birthday. And I'm like, Mom, for your birthday, we have to cancel all of your birthday plans. We have to sit down. I have to watch all of season 2 because I have a meeting Saturday morning at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. with the creators of this show because they're looking to hire someone, and I think I have a chance. We watch it, then the next morning I have a meeting. Then I find out on the following Wednesday that I got it. And then truly 1 week later, 1 week and the day after. So that was on a Wednesday. And then Thanksgiving was the following Thursday. That Friday, I was on a flight to New York and we started the room on that Monday. So truly, like it was like in 1 week, my entire life changed in like a very like tangible, very practical, very insane way.
That's incredible. So you mentioned by the time how you already had representation. So how did you get, you said you had an agent and a manager. Was this just from your one-man show?
It was partly from my one-man show, and I had a series of plays that had I was in Ars Nova's play group. My solo show was probably my most like quote unquote like popular-y thing that I did, but I had a play at I have several plays like in circulation, and then I was a member of Ars Nova's play group of P73's Interstate 73 and Youngblood and EST's Youngblood. So those are like 3 rather prestigious like playwriting fellowships. And so my name just started like, it was just like, it's one of those like fluke things that's like funny to talk about, where I had been doing these like off Broadway like shows in basements for like years and years and years, and then I got a bunch of things sort of back to back, so that for like 4 months my name just sort of circulated, and that was sort of how that was how an agent happened.
That's
It was like kind of a
incredible.
very like practical way.
No, that's really cool. I mean, that's kind of the story you want to hear, right? Is it sounds like you worked and worked and worked and you were doing a lot of different things, and then it all kind of started coming together at
Yeah.
once. You kind of hit a tipping point. And it sounds like it wasn't even necessarily like one big moment. It was just kind of like a culmination of all your
Yeah,
effort.
it was, yeah, it was, the other 2 was definitely one big moment, and then the other big tipping point for me was this is actually I guess, you know, we're talking gay. I went through a really intense breakup in August of 2021. And 1 week after the breakup, I had a movie pitch for a film that I had been drafting about a demon that feeds off people's heartbreak, which was, I did not think I would be single at the time that I was pitching this movie. I
Oh,
pitched it and I sold it, and so suddenly I had this like big and then that was something that like helped the domino. You know, I think of a career as like, specifically with writing, as like my job is being creative and like obviously following like the things that I care about writing about and engaging with my own voice, but I'm also from like a business perspective, I guess I'm sort of being conscious that I am stacking the dominoes in the right places with the right distance between, that when one falls, it'll create some sort of chain reaction. And so I was pretty lucky that these things in my life happened relatively close together and back to back. But I haven't worked on another series since the other 2 wrapped in 2022, and that's one of the reasons why we're striking, because of the mini room structure, which I could talk about for 900 hours, but
yeah. What was it like working on the show?
it was a blast. I had a blast. It was, you know, it was bonkers. I was thinking, knowing I was coming on this podcast, I was thinking about like how I wanted to talk about what the process of like writing was in the room, but every day was sort of its own thing. You know, it's like we could pull up episodes of season 3, and I think it would probably be impossible for me to pause it and be like, and that joke was mine, or like pause it, and that joke was Jimmy's. You know, like, because it was such a there was such a synergy in our room, and all of us are still really close, and we have a group chat that's like constantly going.
That's fantastic.
Oh yeah, Jimmy, Gilly, me, Jimmy, and Moss and Allison Silverman all live in New York, and Gilly lives in LA. And we were the 5 writers in addition to Chris and Sarah, and Jimmy's become like one of my best friends, and we I have undying love for him. But it was fun. You know, I mean, how we structured the season was we came in and we talked about Chris and Sarah were really smart. They're wonderful. And we started from a place of like, what do we want to talk about? And not like not even necessarily like what are we trying to say? Like what's the capital like T theme? But we were like, what are we gonna dissect? And I'll talk about this one more so because we are on the Rainbow Room podcast, but we were really interested in dissecting a queer friendship where one person is taking off and the other person isn't, or where one person the way that success can cause strains on specifically queer relationships. And then it became just pulling from that, you know, and then it just became pulling on those threads in a way that I think was really rewarding. And so like we knew early on that we wanted to pull the Curtis and Carrie friendship apart by the seams, spoiler alert. And we knew that we wanted to have all of the characters get what they want and then have to deal with having what they wanted. And then a lot of the humor just sort of came from there. And then like you know, I'll always remember where we were where I was when the what's his name? Succession guy. Who plays Ken on Succession? Oh my God. I can't
Apparently all I have to do is pull up Google. You don't even have to search anything.
Exactly. Jeremy Strong. I almost said John Armstrong, which is not a name. But I like the Jeremy Strong article about being a method actor came out while we were in week 1 of our writers' room. Maybe it had come out like the week before, but it was sort of top of mind. And we all read it as a writers' room together. And not to say that Lucas Moy is based at all off of Jeremy Strong, but that it's based off this like method actor zeitgeist that you're seeing pop up in different places and all of that. And so like it was sort of like that was like a tentpole thing that we knew we were going to write. But so we had like 3 weeks of blue sky in LA. So we wrote 3 weeks in LA, and then the remaining 12 were supposed to be in New York, but we wound up having to do 3 weeks on Zoom because of Omicron. And then we did the last 9 weeks in New York. And that was because Chris was moving from LA to New York. And so they decided to move, and our above average, the production offices were in New York anyway. So they decided to move everything to New York for the writer's room, which I liked because I'm a big, like, I love being home and having my space. And like week 3 of living in, and granted, like I was living in a penthouse in Beverly Hills and I had like a Malibu Chevy and I was living this like glam life. But by week 3, I was like, I love cooking. And I was like, I miss cooking. I miss cooking so much. And I miss like having my like life. And so I was happy that we got to come into New York and bring those experiences. But our first 3 weeks in the room were just us sort of being like, what is this season gonna feel like? What are some big jokes? You know, a lot of things that didn't make it into the show. There was, without going, well, I guess now that there's there's no season 4, I guess I can like say there was originally this whole arc about a yacht that we were gonna do that then got like scrapped because we were like, it doesn't feel like it's really gonna play the full season. There was a mystery element we were going to put in. So it was just sort of like us just spitballing for 3 weeks, trying to figure out the things that we thought were funniest. And that was where we got like the Lucas of it all. That's where we got like, we knew that Pat was going to essentially become Oprah this season. And we knew that she was going to be like a woman in a prison of her own making in a way. We knew that Brooke was going to quit the industry and like be obsessed with being good. We knew Lance was going to become a nurse. Like it's where like the sort of big swaths of like we knew we were going to do we knew that we wanted to do a Broadway episode. We didn't know what it was going to be. Like we knew we put together like what everything was going to what the show was going to feel like this season. And that was also where the conscious decision was made to like, we're going to like really crank the style up.
Oh man, I am like just getting so excited just like thinking about it, just listening to you talk because it sounds so fun. Like it just sounds like a blast.
It was a blast. I mean, you know, like there are, as with any show, like there are days that are easier than other days. Like there is a one of my favorite days in the room was when we cracked Brooke being a ghost. Truly, like most of the jokes in that episode were made like in one day in the writers' room, which is like pretty unusual, where we were just like really cooking with gas and we were like, oh my god, this, and then structuring it and actually writing it. But like the bulk of the jokes were written in like several hours, at least in my like bad shitty memory. Like I, from what I remember, that's how I watched, like cut to like what actually happened, and it was like 7 weeks of us just trying to figure out what happened to Brooke in that Ellen's birthday party. But that there would be days where like it took us forever to figure out what Globby was going to be. We knew that we wanted to talk about queer representation and animated stuff and how it's just sort of like blink and you miss it, but to figure out what specifically it should be, it took forever. He was a fish at one point, he was something like, and those days are like, it's fun because you're like, everyone's frustrated, everyone's tired, we're all like, holy shit, we can't crack this thing. And then you zoom out and you're like, we're trying to figure out like what shitty gay animated character that's in a show for like 1 second Carrie's gonna voice and be a complete like buffoon about. And like that is like, so like even when it's hard, it's still sort of this like joyous like, I just get to be in a room and be like stupid. And sometimes being stupid is like the hardest thing in the world because I'm so fucking smart. No, because because like it just, yeah, it's wacky, it's wild.
For our listeners who aren't as familiar, what does it mean to crack something? Like, what does that term mean?
Yeah, I mean, people have different, you know, I guess like breaking story. It's just like breaking story is just figuring out the things that are going to work.
Got it. Perfect.
You know,
that's succinct.
What's the A to B of the thing? What is the, you know, what's the hijinks of the episode? What's the game going to be? Identifying what it is.
Yeah, I think we should probably cut to our break now. Let's watch the show. Woo! And we're back.
Wow. We watched all 30 episodes in that one.
Insane.
Insane.
Okay, wait. So how did y'all first discover the other two?
This is funny. So I was, when they announced that the show was ending, you know how like you can search through your own photos?
Okay.
So I typed in the other two just because I thought maybe it would pull up like any of the like pictures that I have from set or anything like that, and it pulled up. I'm gonna do it again live on my phone right now so that I can accurately describe it. It pulled up a picture that I took June 16th, 2019 of the other two. This is my phone, you can't see it if you're listening, but of the like Emmy for Your Consideration 2019 poster of the other two that I just like snapped and sent to my friend and was like, this is a really funny show, I think we should keep watching it, because we had watched the first episode. And then we like watched, I think we watched the rest of it live or whatever. But I would watch it with my best friend Holly in her room. We lived together, like on her bed where she had a TV, because we didn't have a TV in our living room. And we would just like binge the show together on her, or watch every episode every week on her bed. And we thought it was just like the funniest thing.
That's incredible. Like what's incredible is that you like loved and respected this show so much and then got stabbed in it. Like that's so cool.
I was so nervous to meet them, like before my interview. I've looked up to both of them. Other People is one of my favorite movies. Chris Kelly's feature. I like deeply. I like watched that movie, and then I made my whole family sit down and watch it. And I was like, we're all gonna cry together. And then like my family were like, you just wanted us to watch this because you're gay. Yeah. I mean, I've been out for like 10 years at that point, but I was like, yeah, duh, like, hello.
Yes, so what?
Yeah. And my mom did cry. My dad did not cry. But yeah, I don't know. I was a fan of the show before I worked on it.
That's incredible. How about you, Eric?
I was just living with my roommate, my old roommate Claire. She and I were in film school together, and I just like I remember hearing about it on Twitter, and then also like she came out of her room one day and was like, "Eric, you have to watch this. You would love this show." Um, and I just was so like, "Okay, yeah." She was like, "It's gay," and I was like, "Okay, you sold me." So, um, I watched all of season one like so fast. It was back when it was on. What was
Comedy
that first? It was
Central.
on on some.
Comedy
Yeah,
Central.
I remember when it was on there, and it was such a like the journey to get to watching that like that first season was such like an ordeal because it was like you had to do the whole like what's your TV provider, yada yada yada. I had to like call my mom, ask for it, whatever. And like
Yeah.
once I finally got to it, I was like, oh, thank God I did this. Because there was really many things. I'm such like a person who like if I'm inconvenienced even the slightest bit, I say no. Um, and so I'm glad I pushed through and watched because I was like, I love this show. It's so good.
And we had to talk about this moment, even though it's not in the pilot, but the I am gagging for you.
Oh yeah.
I had seen that clip like in isolation, which is
That was another really early joke in our writers room that she was going to come back and be like, I was horrible back then, because we knew we wanted to play into um the being good.
That moment was just iconic though.
Oh yeah. I know, I'm jealous I wasn't there for it.
It's like on loop in my head constantly. I love whenever I feel like it always that specific scene always like circulates like throughout Twitter like every so often.
Oh
Like
yeah.
even sometimes during like Pride Month and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just briefly talk about some moments I wanted to shout out. I do love in the pilot how they start this out and like first of all, and this is kind of the whole show. I do love how supportive the family is of each other.
Mm.
And I think that helps stomach how much of like a train wreck Brooke and Carrie's lives are, because it's like throughout that they're like have these like beacons of support. Um and it's so smart how they introduce it with like the uh he they're doing the interview of Chase Dreams, and the mom is being supportive and bringing up his siblings, and then they're like, oh, what are they up to now? And then just like hard cut to where they are in their miserable lives.
Yeah.
It's literally Carrie auditioning for a fart commercial, and Brooke squatting in the apartment she's supposed to be selling.
Yeah. I know, I mean, Chris and Sarah are really one of the things that I loved about working on the show, and and I'm this way in my own writing, separate from the show. They're big on structure. They're big on structure. Like they in a way that I love. Like the hard cut, the top like something that I loved, I'm maybe jumping the gun here a little bit, but something that I loved about going back and rewatching this pilot that I feel like of course, once I was like staffed on the show, I then like rewatched the series like 3 times, like a crazy. I have so much Carrie in me of like, and now I must do like a perfect job, and therefore I must be like not a human for however long it takes. And but that every character is introduced in a way that tells you everything you really need to know about them. Like I love that we meet Streeter, and instantly in the first minute of Streeter, he's like, I fucked up, and I actually fucked up, and I hurt your brother. And then we meet Lance via a dab, and surprise, he's coming to dinner. The whole family loves him. We meet the kids, like we meet Brooke and Carrie, like how you said, where it's like, and how are their lives cut? And we get this like snapshot of what a disaster their lives are. And each one, like you meet Lance on an act break, which just for people listening, it would be like you meet Lance and then it goes to commercial break. Like, and then you meet Streeter sort of at the top of the next act. Like it's so well formatted that we get to meet these characters and then play with them. Instead of us just sort of like happenstantially meeting them and then being like, how do they fit? Like they're talked about and then they're there. And then we get to like see comedic beats with them. That's for almost every character that's introduced in the pilot, in a way that I'm just like so awestruck by how it's like it's a very like what I would refer to as like it's a very teachable pilot in the sense that it's like a very good, if you want to talk about the rules of comedy, you can use this pilot as an example of like, this is the structure that it's following, this is why it's funny, this is why it's working.
That's amazing. And you, as you said, like you weren't really a TV writer before this in terms of like even you didn't even think it was kind of going to be in your realm.
No, I mean,
So
I had written I had written the pilot to Find Him, which is how I got Seth on the show, and I had converted another play of mine into a pilot. But now I mostly work in TV. But yeah.
okay, so you had at least, I was gonna say, like, how did you study the structure? Did you take courses on that, or like?
No, I mean, I've been working in comedy for a long time. Like had my playwriting life, and then like I was one of those people that, like I had a house team at the Pit, and like I did the UCB comedy classes, and I did the sketch writing classes, and I was in this show called Queer Ball for a bit, and like so I had done. And my I am by no means a nepo baby. My dad is a stand-up comedian on cruise ships, and my mom founded the first professional improv company in Miami. So like I had been around sort of like comedy, and so I am like a big nerd, but it's funny because like that part of my life felt so separate, you know, like the comedy part of my life and the like TV I'm a writer part of my life felt like two different parts of me that no longer, like thanks to the other two largely, don't feel that separate anymore.
That's so cool. I didn't know you did UCB. I didn't know you were also like an improviser. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was never like on a house team. I never auditioned for the house teams or anything like that for UCB. I kind of did the classes and then was sort of like, I'm gonna do my own thing. And left. I think I auditioned once for a house improv team and I fell flat on my face and was bad.
Hey, we love failure. We love risks.
Oh yeah. There's no bigger risk than when you're in a fluorescent room with like a panel of like improv gods and you're like, I'm just gonna like step off the back line and say like, well, isn't this weather insane? You know? And like your scene partner's like, what? And then you're like, what? And then they're like, next.
They're like, please
Very
go.
easy.
Oh, I also wanted to talk about the Matt and Carrie, the straight guy
Oh my
relationship.
God.
Oh, the straight roommate.
I love the straight roommate. It's such a, you know, I'm talking about season one and like my experience watching it as like a queer person. Like it was like that was representation we deeply needed and we got in this pilot of like living with a straight guy. Like I don't know, have y'all had like weird, I've for sure had like weird like but I'm straight thing. Like I like dated a guy for 2 months who was straight, and it was like I was like his like, and then but like we were never boyfriends, we were like our own weird thing, and it was like I just like am obsessed with you but I'm not gay, I like women, you know, like and like to see that represented, I feel like it's like part of the queer experience is like pining after
Oh yeah. Yeah. I feel like this in this pilot is so I'm talking about this because I just binged all of season 2 yesterday.
Oh my God, fun.
But there's that one plot line in season 2 where Carrie like goes on a date or like just like goes on dates with that one actor who's like queer baiting constantly.
Totally.
And so hearing you remind me of like the straight roommate plotline, it's so interesting to see like Carrie sort of just like this continuous fascination with like I think like by the time we have that plot line with that queer baiting actor, Carrie has grown from it a little bit, but it still is like a reminder of where Carrie has come from and how Carrie still struggles with
Totally.
like yeah.
And that was a conscious decision in season 3 that we didn't want to have any sort of like straight storyline with Carrie. There is, of course, that he can't have sex with his boyfriend because he's always in character, and he's in character as different people that can have sex. But we were conscious that we wanted to have a character who's like encountering their queerness and embracing it full face. Because he doesn't embrace his queerness in season 1. Like that's part of his whole thing is that he has a hard time navigating it. And then it's sort of exacerbated in season 2. And then so we were interested in season 3 of being like, what if that's no longer a struggle for him? And instead it's like, how do I now capitalize on my queerness? And so that's where like Globby comes from. That's where like being the Calvin Klein model, or not really the Burrito Weekly, but the photo shoot, that's where all of that stuff sort of lives in that sort of how does he engage with his queerness world.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
god,
he's so I was sorry.
you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, to me, I guess because I am like as gay men, I'm like I see the gay character and I'm like very fascinated by like that character and like really analyzing that person. And so like just Carrie's whole journey and like I'm only like a couple of episodes into season three, but like a scene that really stuck out to me was in the season three, episode one, after like Carrie has them watch all the movie, and then it's just like the credits roll as he's like scrolling all of like the stuff about like Night Nurse, and he's just like there, like like look at it. And I'm like, Carrie is such like it's the show is so like about like media consumption and like how
Yeah,
it can like turn your life into so many different directions. And so watching Carrie sort of constantly go viral for insane things like is such an
totally.
interesting thing. Yeah.
And that's also partially where like going back to the pilot of season one, something that I like really deeply love about about that pilot also, and it's something that I think the show has does really well, and was one of the things I was most proud of from season three. In season one, it's the last scene where they're finally with Chase Dreams, and they're in in his hotel, and they're having, there's like a funny back and forth where it's like he got flowers from Deborah Messing, and then he crawls into bed and he's like, yeah, like I can't wait to hang out with you guys. And they're like, we're not coming to Ohio. And he's like, when I'm back in New York, like Streeter says I'm gonna be back here all the time. I'm gonna do school online. And they're like, oh, that's good. And like it's not played for laughs, it's actually played for, I mean, of course there's a sort of humor to it, but it's actually like pointing at how sad this kid's life is going to become and be,
Yeah.
in a way that it's like the show does a really fun job of like landing the plane in these sort of like, oh, uncomfortable emotional places for the characters,
Mhm.
which I think, I don't want to, because you haven't finished, but
I haven't finished, but like spoilers,
no,
whatever.
I know.
I'm still gonna
I'm
like
kidding. I'm
binge all
kidding.
of it.
But season three ends, the ending where we wanted to end the series was in a way that was like, or end the season in a way that was like that.
Yeah.
And so like the last episode sort of has, it doesn't play into the comedy structures of season three. It doesn't play a lot into the comedy structures, and it actually has them sort of sitting and dealing with their problems. And there's a lot longer scenes and a lot longer conversations than there usually are in a comedy. And they're really like sort of at each other's throats, emotionally. Speaking specifically to like the Curtis Carey conversation at the end with the table, where he's like, in a perfect comedy, Curtis would be like, yeah, like you're back, like come back, I'm your friend again. But that's not exactly where it lands. It lands like, okay, we're gonna rebuild things in a very soft way that's still funny, and then they're like looking at dick pics together, and it's still like it's still the other two, but it's also Chris and Sarah are really good at giving the show permission to like be the thing that it needs to be and that it wants to be, to say what it wants to say. And we sort of like all of the writers in the room for the show, and I think the actors as well, really really know that and take that and ran with that. And so I don't know, it was fun to work on a thing that could also have like a strong emotional weight, instead of it just being like a, what I call like a 2 joke per page like sketch thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel
But
like
that
that
was like,
speaks
I
to
forgot that moment was in the pilot, and so like
yeah.
watching it, I rewatched it this morning, and I was like, oh yeah, oh, this is like, I love this stuff.
Yeah. I, I feel like that speaks to what you were saying about the how the showrunners like loves just like structure. And I felt like, yeah, the show could have so easily been something where it was like jokes, 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 punching you in the face. But then like, yeah, these incredibly human moments are so sobering. I feel like for the actors and the audience, like I like when I was in my like season two binge yesterday, I was just like getting so awash with like all the jokes and missing some of them. But then when we get later in and there's like the more serious moments, I was like really clued in because I was like, it's so rare when we get these human moments, and that's why it makes them so special and makes the show so human and universal, I feel like. And that's why is so sad to me that the show is ending, because I'm like, I could watch this for days and days
Yeah.
and days. Like, this is such a good show.
It feels like an ending at season 3 is what I'll
Yeah.
say
Okay, cool.
on that.
I'm excited.
Like I think also another thing that we're conscious of, at least so I have been told they're conscious of every season, is like you never know when people are going to choose to step away. You never know if you're going to get canceled. You never know that. But like beyond those, the show wasn't canceled. The showrunners made the decision to end the show, and but beyond those, beyond like that, I think something that they're really conscious of is they want every season to feel like it's telling a complete story. I think so many shows that are out right now, and we're in like a funny time in TV where I feel like there's a lot of shows that I deeply love that are coming out, like Severance. There's a lot of show like I mean, this is now like we're a little past this, but like I May Destroy You, Fleabag, like we've had this like run of these really incredible, really moving, really challenging, fun shows. But I think also we're a little inundated with content, and so a lot of these TV shows are relying on like what's the cliffhanger that's going to keep people coming back. And I think something that I really respect and admire in Chris and Sarah is that they're like not interested in the cliffhanger. I mean, they are interested in like you being invested in where a story is going to go, but they don't want you to get to the end of a season and you're like, oh, what happened? Like, yeah, especially when it comes to like a comedy, and especially when it comes to like, I don't know, it would feel weird. Like what you were saying, Eric, like we're making a show about media consumption, right? So it would be weird to be like, this show about media consumption is ending on a cliffhanger that's going to make you want to consider, like that feels sort of like not the point. The point of the show
Yeah.
is it's not Game of Thrones, which, and we know how where that went. But yeah.
Oh, one thing I did want to talk about too is just like we always talk about the authenticity of the representation. I think actually, Dylan, it was good for me to hear you say that you have had an experience like Drew and Matt, because since I haven't, I was like, is this authentic? But it sounds like you're like, no, this is really authentic.
Yeah, it's that's authentic.
And so this for season 1, and then obviously for all the seasons there were queer writers in the room, right? Because there's the showrunner's queer, right? One of the showrunners is queer, so you have that queer actor. Like, so I do like a lot of the authenticity in this show.
Totally, yeah. There's jokes about representation and what it looks like peppered throughout the series.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's go into final thoughts. I'll start. Dylan, I think you're incredible. I've loved listening to everything you said, and what I really like about your takeaway is that you said this is a teachable pilot. I think it makes me want to rewatch it and like study its structure, even more, because that's really cool. And I think it's fun and funny and has some great moments.
Oh, thank you.
My final thoughts on the show. Fun, gay, straight, silly, media obsessed, human, and intriguing. And I also have one anecdote I want to give about this show. I used to be someone who was like, that whole trend where it was like, oh, like watching sex scenes with your parents, like that is so awkward, whatever. And I, all growing up as a gay person, would only watch, like, if that ever happened, it was always like a straight sex scene. And I'd be like, it's whatever, I don't really care. Like, that's not embarrassing to like witness that. But then my mom and I watched season 1 of the other two together, and Harry has sex in that season, and that's when I realized, like, oh, this is so awkward to watch with a parent, is to watch a same-sex like sex scene. So for people who had that mindset, you'll learn, like, it's just as awkward for it no matter what the sexuality is.
My final thought is Thanks. It's thanks and gratitude. It feels endlessly surreal to have been like a small part of something that I think has impacted or affected or made people laugh and has felt specifically gay. Which I think also like wow, am I gonna cry? No, I'm not gonna cry. I don't know. It's just like, you spend so much of your life, especially like we're all in the same age group, and so it wasn't particularly easy for us as like little queer kids growing up and where we were, where like the idea that I'm like now on this like podcast talking about having written on a show that's a comedy about sort of the gay experience and like the entertainment industry feels like endlessly surreal. And so I'm just really thankful to have been able to leave some formative imprint on that show and to have met y'all. You guys are both really wonderful, and it was really fun chatting with you.
Amazing. Thank you. And
So fun.
it's so wonderful to meet you. One last question
Yeah.
for you, Dylan.
Yeah.
To say goodbye, can you give advice to any aspiring queer writers, people who maybe would love to write for TV one day? And I am also one of those people that would like advice.
Yeah. Okay. The cliche advice is like you just have to, like, the scariest thing is the blank page. You just have to like write the thing and do the thing. And like if you want to make your own work, like make your own work, all of that, la da 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 da. And I'm a strong believer in that. My like practical advice for like the craft of writing, and this is like sort of the mountain that I preach from. Oh, two things. Can I say two things?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
One is write the scenes that excite you. And don't worry about writing things linear. Just because we experience a thing linearly doesn't mean it was written linearly. Like write the things that are exciting to you, and then just trust that you will thread it together, because eventually you will like, I'm one of those writers that like I get bored in the middle of my work. And so what I started doing was I stopped writing the middle, and then while I was writing the end, I started thinking of exciting moments for the middle, and suddenly the middle became exciting to me. But then the other like mountaintop that I shout from is if you're writing and you're like, oh my God, this is so predictable, this is so obvious, I know where this is going. Yeah, duh, you wrote it. It should be predictable to you. Duh. Like, of course. Like, get out of your own fucking way. Like, that's not helpful. You are not predictable. You are telling a story, and maybe somebody will know where it's going, but who cares? You, of course, know where it's going. You wrote it. You made the thing. So just like I'm Nike. Just do it.
Gay Nike, just do it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's my advice.
I really love that. Well, thank you so much. What a wonderful note
Thank
to end
you.
on. Dylan, you've been
Thank
incredible. I'm so
you.
happy to have met you.
Great.
And
This is so much fun.
yeah, you're welcome back on the pod anytime, man.
Oh my God.
Anytime.
Yeah, bring me back to talk about Twister.
Oh my God.
Sure. Let's do it.
We'd have to make
30th
it gay.
anniversary next year.
All right.
But
thank you for listening, listeners. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Woo, gay, gay, gay,
Gay,
gay, gay, gay.
gay.